In the last couple of hours, there has been a new variant of COVID-19 recorded out of South Africa. The World Health Organisation is holding an emergency meeting, and the UK has already imposed a travel ban to 6 African countries. Joining me live now is the Minister for Finance, Simon Birmingham. Simon Birmingham, thanks so much for your time. This new variant out of South Africa, are you aware of it? And is there anything that you're doing about it immediately?
Well, good morning, Laura. Yes, of course, I am aware of it. And as always, our Australian authorities, our medical advisors and teams will be working very closely as part of those global discussions to ensure that we have the best possible information and analysis available to us. That will be brought to the National Security Committee of Cabinet, where we have undertaken the majority of the COVID discussions, so that we can have full information that the Health Minister will brief and share with the Prime Minister and others to ensure that we maintain a complete awareness of these sorts of situations. We have, throughout every step of COVID-19, been able to keep on top of the international situations, and we'll make sure that we continue to do so with the best possible analysis.
The UK has already put in place travel bans to 6 African nations. Do we need to follow suit immediately?
We'll look very carefully at any of those considerations. The most important early decision that was made way back on the 1st of February last year was when Scott Morrison determined to close Australia's international borders to China. And from there, we took a series of subsequent decisions, ultimately with that global closure of our borders for quite a long period of time. Now, we're taking the careful steps at present to reopen those borders. They have been careful steps, but of course we will watch very carefully these sorts of developments, and if we need to target closures in certain locations, then we won't hesitate to do so. Yeah,
does this highlight kind of vaccinating the world is as much in our own self-interest as anything else? If poorer nations are not vaccinated, we risk getting these new variants that might eventually infect Australia?
It's a very good point, Laura, that yes, of course, protecting Australians is our first responsibility as an Australian national government, and we have now one of the most heavily protected populations in the world in terms of the recency of vaccine rollout in Australia, the reach of it to now more than 90% of the Australian population double dosed, and one of the first countries in the world to be able to deploy a population scale booster effort. But alongside that, we have been committing and delivering millions of doses to other countries within our region, to, of course, our Pacific Island family, but also then across countries to our north in Papua New Guinea and Timor-Leste, and indeed millions of doses of support for Indonesia as well as Vietnam. And we will continue to work as hard as we can and to continue to encourage other countries through our leadership to support that global effort to achieve higher vaccination rates.
You know the Pacific is largely our responsibility in many ways. Whose responsibility is Africa?
Well, you've always seen particularly European nations play a very large role in terms of affairs and engagement with Africa. It's ultimately the world's responsibility to look as best we can across the globe, but Australia, a country of our size and scale, looks very much to our region first and foremost as to where we can provide that support. However, the collaboration that we've seen through particularly the G20, through other international fora, the commitments made by the Quad leadership as well, all of that is about making sure that we can reach as far into the world as possible, knowing that it's not just vaccine availability that is the challenge in so many of these countries. It is also, of course, actually having the distribution channels to be able to effectively reach into those populations at scale.
Indeed, it is. We've spoken about vaccine diplomacy and the influence that China has tried to exercise during the pandemic. We're also seeing something that's a little closer to home now, with China has been in the past trying to exercise its influence over the Solomon Islands. We have now sent troops there after days of unrest. Is this an opportunity to re-exert our influence in the region?
Well, I think you can see there's a vote of confidence from the Solomon Islands in the relationship that they have with Australia. We're there as a friend, as a partner, as a nation that has a long-standing history of working closely with the Solomon Islands and has a bilateral security treaty in place, and it was under that treaty that we have sent Australian Federal Police and support Defence Forces to be able to help the restoration of peace and stability in the Solomon Islands, and we've done so at the request of the Government of the Solomon Islands. Our teams on the ground there will be working closely hand in glove with the Royal Solomon Islands Police Force to ensure that we're there to support them, not to engage in their domestic politics, not to engage in the underlying issues that might be related to the tensions that are there, but simply to help to ensure that critical infrastructure is protected and peace and stability restored to the streets of the Solomon Islands.